Hello, YouTube, and welcome back to another video. Today, we have the pleasure of welcoming Mike Struthers, who is the CEO of Luca Mining Corp. Hi, Mike. How are you?
Hello, Justin. Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Good to be with you.
Thank you for being here. And I have to say that looking through your recent press releases, it looks like the market is quite excited about Luca Mining Corp. So as we're getting started here, for people who are maybe not familiar with the company, maybe you could just introduce us in terms of who you are and what you guys do.
Yeah, sure. So Luca Mining, we're a mining company. We've got two projects in Mexico, both 100% owned. One is established mine, has been operating for some years under previous ownership and with ourselves since about 2018. The other is a construction project, but as per our news release today, we're really happy to have hit that first major construction milestone, which is 500 tons a day, so half the designed capacity of that mine. That's Tahuehueto. Tahuehueto is a gold mine fundamentally. The other operation in Guerrero State is base metal operation, producing zinc and copper concentrates, but with precious metals credits. So two operations, one you could say half built, the other one operating. And so Luca, there's been a couple of name changes, but the company's been around for a while. But the way I describe this year is really, this is the turnaround year for the company. Bit of a mixed track record in the last couple of years. Had a funding arrangement, a debt financing arrangement with a bank in Mexico for Tahuehueto construction. That bank went into liquidation, so that cut off the funding for the construction project. A number of rounds of funding since then, but lots of expectations raised and not really delivery. I got involved in the company back at the end of September last year. It was evident, the board recognized there was a different set of skills really required to execute this construction project and really sort of turn the company into a mining company, proper. That's really my background. I mean, I come from a very technical sort of operations and capital projects background. I was with Lundin Mining for a few years. I've worked all over the place. So in a variety of jurisdictions and commodities and different types of situations. So a lot of capital projects and mine building, sort of a brownfield mine expansion type experience. So very much an engineering background. And so, I had a look in September and I thought, okay, I can see what the problems are. And I know how to fix them. So I thought, okay, this is a good role for me. I'll come in and help. And we've done some other things since then. We're really this year, as I say, turnaround year, reshaping the company into a bona fide, a proper mining company. So I can talk to those. Quite a few changes going on, but
so maybe really, Mike, sorry to cut you off, but I have a question here. So everyone loves a really good turnaround story, and it seems like you, as a seasoned executive in the mining sector, you looked at this company and you saw something you liked. So my question for you is, like, what made you want to actually come on? Like, what got you excited to come on with Luca?
Well, a few things. One, as I say, was really. It was evident that the company had a lot of issues in the last 18 months to 2 years or so, and the question was why. And so I was at both the sites for a while, spent some time at both the operations, and so one answer to that is I felt I understood what the issues were, and so I also knew how they could be fixed. I mean, to give you one very simple sort of example, the construction project at Tahuehueto was being managed by an exploration geologist. Now, no disrespect to the guy, it was just one of these square peg round hole situations. It was just the wrong skill set to execute the project. That's a simplistic example of some of the things that I found. So, on the one hand, I could see in the sort of short to medium term how things could be turned around and fixed. Both the projects have got some really interesting sort of strong upside. That was something that's important. When you come into something, you want to know that there's a path to growth. It's not just the daily churn, but you can see there's a path forward to add a lot more value. So I like that about both the assets. They're both quite different mines. The types of deposits are quite different. So they bring different challenges and opportunities, but I like the upside for both of them. I already knew some of the people involved, so there was a level of comfort there too. We had some common shareholdings with other juniors that I've been involved in before. So it wasn't a completely strange group that I didn't have any sort of familiarity or comfort with. So a few factors, yeah.
That's a good recap, and I think that we always we're sometimes unaware of things when we're working really close on a project. So maybe the existing management team just couldn't see things that people could from the outside. Would you find that to be a fair assessment?
I think that is fair. Yeah, it's often skill sets and experience. If you haven't had that experience, a particular experience before, then you don't recognize sometimes the shortcomings that are really right in front of you. For example, having an exploration geologist running a construction project, it's just not the right set of skills.
Different phases of a mine require different skill sets too. So
Yes.
bringing it, doing the drilling, doing the actual the mining, all requires different skill sets too. So I think the company is just growing and evolving over time. And something that I noticed too was just the recent news flow regarding these large private placements. So what that tells me is that in this environment, it seems quite difficult to raise money, but you guys have been able to go to the market and to get multiple raises at very high numbers. So what do you think the market is seeing, or people who are participating in those raises? Is it something similar to you, or are they seeing something different in terms of opportunity?
No, I think a similar perspective. I think on the one hand, the story has been around for a while. As I said, previous shareholders have had a rough ride, and lots of sort of raised expectations and not delivering. So sort of over promising, under delivery problem. So I think people who've been either involved with or following the company in the past, a lot of frustration there, and I suppose I guess a recognition of bringing different people in now, which will actually see it finally get done. But I think that's why with the press release today that we'll get a decent tick in the market with just a sort of sigh of relief, really, that finally we've been able to achieve that first key milestone for Tahuehueto. But in the private placement, we have done remarkably well. It's a very tough market right now for raising money, and so it's been a great effort by all of our team to get that done. I think that it's a recognition that we can get it done now, and the opportunity here. I mean, 2 years ago, this company had a market cap of over 200 million, and today we're fluctuating between sort of 45 to 50. The story for that, what brought the company to this point, is what I was mentioning. It's that Mexican bank that failed, a series of funding rounds that going back to the market a number of times with cap in hand and not delivering on expectations, that sort of thing. So I think now, I mean, either one of our projects has got a valuation that's greater than our market cap, and in combination, it's substantially greater than our market cap. And so with our low share price, the quality of the assets, and the new team, and that turnaround story, which is the turnaround is obviously do exactly what we say we're going to do. So we said we would deliver the 500 tons by the end of June, and that's what we've done. And we've got to keep doing that, because it's very easy to lose credibility. It's hard work to get it back. And so this year is about delivery, execution, making sure we do exactly what we say we're going to do. So I think people bought into that story. I think people like a turnaround, and they saw the opportunity. They like the assets. It's recognized that they're good quality assets. It's just turning it into a mining company, getting it across that line, and delivery.
So
and setting ourselves up.
It seems like there's a disconnect between the fundamental value and the way the market is voting, because the market tends to be a voting machine in the long term, but a weighing machine in the long term. So it appears like this news release you have with today. Would you mind just touching a little bit more on the news release? What does this mean for the company?
Well, it's great news on two fronts, of course. As we mentioned, hitting that 500 ton a day milestone, that first major construction milestone for Tahuehueto is a big event for us. You could say it's a modest production rate, but if the PFS that was done updated in 2022, the economics in that PFS are pretty compelling. I mean, the IRR was about 65%, 2-year payback. It's, the Tahuehueto project is a good project. It's actually not technically difficult either. The mining is not technically difficult. The processing there's no significant deleterious elements or things like that. So it's just a matter of getting it built, really. So that, achieving that first milestone when we said we would on budget is an important tick. And then really, that placement, being able to raise literally just under 25 million Canadian in the current climate, for a junior, albeit junior miner, but that's a big achievement, and that sets us up. That allows us to do what we want to do this year. Our goal now, having delivered on this 500, is to go to the 1,000 tons a day, which is the commercial production, the nameplate capacity for the project. So this year is apart, turnaround. We can use these expressions, but it's really set the foundation for the company. It's get that foundation done. So get Campo Morado operating in a more consistent way. I could say a lot more about that, obviously. But getting it operating more consistently and get Tahuehueto built. So by the end of this year, we've got 2 operating mines operating the way they should be, profitably, setting ourselves up for a really good 2024. And then really it's upwards from there, right? We're doing other things behind the scene to, reshaping the company. We made an announcement recently of 2 guys that I know very well who've come to join the board. Both of them I work with in Lundin Mining. They're both really mature hands in the mining industry, in their own sectors, but they bring a great deal of depth to the board. So evolution of the board is another thing that's happening this year. So there's organizational change going on at different levels as well. So it's really all about shaping the company. By the end of this year, doing a lot of things to make ourselves into a bona fide, professional mining company.
I'm really happy to hear that, Mike. And the saying is that money talks, and people are voting with their dollars, and they're voting and saying you guys are set up for success. So I want to touch on a few things I heard you say as we were doing the interview. And someone who I really respect, he says that there's 3 things for any three critical parts to any successful company. It's people, process, product. And what I heard you talk about are the people who you're going to be bringing on board, the changes in process, and then the actual product. So from your point of view, where do you think the potential opportunity is when it comes to the people, process, product? Like maybe meaning, what are the areas where you've already focused on and improved, but where do you think those next improvements can be made? Like, what should shareholders be excited about?
It's really, as I say, they're really about delivery. I think the evolution of the organization, in a sense, I wouldn't say it happens naturally, but it's a part of the process of just, making sure you have all the right skill sets available in the company to do what you want to do. And that includes at the board level as it does, at other levels. In terms of, our future news flow from here on in for the rest of this year is really going to be fundamentally about 2 things: about Tahuehueto construction and hitting that 1,000 ton a day milestone, obviously. And at Campo Morado, there's a couple of opportunities there to not just sort of incrementally improve our recoveries, but to take a bit of a step change in recoveries, which will add a tremendous amount of revenue. So we're sort of getting serious about exploring a couple of those opportunities. One is more focused on base metal recoveries, and the other is focused on improving our precious metal recoveries. So in terms of sort of technical achievements, those which will have a really direct impact on bottom line, those are the 2 sort of that's the sort of news flow we'll get from both of the operations. Otherwise, during this current financing round, and we've described it as a financing package because it's beyond the private placement. We've also completed a number of debt settlements in this process, and that's had a really very positive impact on our balance sheet. So about a year or perhaps a year and a half ago, the debt burden with the company was about 50 million Canadian, pretty significant for a small junior. As a result of some of these debt conversions and things, now that's going to be sitting at around, it currently sits at around 25 Canadian. And then a significant part of that is related to it's a note that was held over by that Mexican bank. We believe that'll get picked up and probably by friendly hands, and then put probably back into the company. So, before the end of the year, I would say our debt position is probably going to be down to, less than a quarter of what it was a year and a half ago. So a lot of parallel activities are cleaning up the balance sheet. There's just tackling all of these sort of legacy issues in different ways to set ourselves up for 2024, etc. So there's a lot going on.
Mike, sorry to cut you off. What I really like about your answer is that you're very specific, because when I do some of these interviews, oftentimes what I'll get is like a general, like a canned answer where they say all the buzzwords, but you're really saying, I want to be held accountable. We talked about the end of June for delivering our results. We want to get that. We're laser focused on one or two things. And we want to make sure that we're going to achieve what we planned at the end of the year. You want to make sure that the shareholders from the past are not going to be treated the same going forward, where they know what to expect, milestones are met, and there is that benefit to the shareholders, like the accretive benefit that people are seeing.
Totally, yeah. People have to have confidence, right? I mean, and we as a company, we need to have credibility in the marketplace. That's fundamental. If you don't have that, then really you're wasting your time and you're wasting people's money. So it's hard to get that. I mean, to either get it back or develop it, right? And it just requires, it can be boring sometimes, but it requires that just consistent, consistent hitting milestones and being accurate in what you say to people. So this is not the time for a huge promoter. It's the time for a boring engineer like me to just get in and actually just do things consistently and build confidence. And then we have some big aspirations. We've got we've got a couple of big shareholders now who are very much in it for the long run. Our largest shareholder now, as a result of this financing, is a group called Calu. It's a fund out of the US. But they're in it for build. They want to build a $500 million company like we do. So it's the right recipe. It's got the right type of hands involved. So yeah, it's
$500 million is a lot higher than you are now too, Mike, correct?
Say again?
$500 million valuation is a little bit higher than you are today, which means you've got pretty big ambitions. I'd like to hear that too, because if we don't aim for the stars, we often don't get off planet Earth, where we stay in orbit, and that's what it sounds like. You need to.
No, exactly. You've got to have aspirations, right? You have to have a strategy that is, that goes beyond the next 6 to 12 months. Now we have that. There's some ambition there, which is fundamental. You need to have ambition. You need to know. You need to understand what it is you want to achieve now, and 5 years from now, where do you want to be? So I think our goals for this year are pretty, as you said, very specific. As we go beyond that, it's really about two things: organic growth. That sort of happens naturally anyway, right? If you have a developing or operating asset, you naturally grow that asset. You either expand your resources, you increase the throughput. We're looking at opportunities to increase throughput at both the operations, most particularly at Tahuehueto, I would say, which I think the Tahuehueto gold mine is capable of doing about 2,000 tons a day. I wouldn't say it's going to be a 5 or 10,000 ton a day mine. It's never going to be on that scale. But with the good grades we've got there, if we can double the throughput, that makes a huge impact to our cash flows. So we're going to be exploring those sorts of things. But I'd sort of describe that as sort of organic growth, that you work with what you've got, you try and expand it, and you get the best value you can out of it. But the other part of that, of course, is M&A. Really, is looking at acquisitions, build out the portfolio, and really with this foundation established this year, then 2024, that we'll be looking more seriously at those sorts of opportunities. It's a very opportunistic thing to do. So I mean, there are some projects that we're looking at already. But the strategy there is to get serious about that in 24.
So here's what I'm hearing, Mike. I know you have an engineering background. My dad owns a construction company. I worked there for a long time. There's something called the critical path, which means that you've talked about getting your own house in order before you go look at other opportunities, but you're aware they're out there. You're talking about making sure you hit your milestones for the end of June before you focus on the milestones for the end of this year before next year. So it really sounds like you want to be meticulous, very detailed, but also very specific in what you're doing. So that's what I really like. Do you have any comments on that? I think the critical path is something that a lot of people kind of just forget about. It's the essential thing you need to do to get to the next step. It's the prerequisites. It's nice to tell a great story, but you need to also go in and deliver.
Precisely, and that, I guess, coming into this, it was evident that the frustration that everybody felt about the company not having delivered in the past. And I think to achieve that, you have to be very specific. You have to have those detailed plans, and you have to help the people you have to understand what's required of them to develop those plans. And we go through I get involved in a lot of the detail of that, because you're also developing people as well as developing assets. So I think, being specific, being detailed, the devil is in the detail in these things, right? You succeed by understanding all the risks involved, the upside too, and following meticulously how you get towards each milestone, and tracking things properly. So, we've made a lot of changes in the company with relation to cash management, capital budgeting, scheduling our activities, all that sort of stuff. So you need to introduce all of those sorts of disciplines. It's not really rocket science. It's just another skill set. You just need to have an attention to detail, and you need people working with you who share that vision, if you like, but that skill set. So there's some shaping of the organization, as I said earlier, that goes along with that to make sure you've got the right skill sets that allow you to do these things. No one person can do it. It's a big team effort. I mean, as a junior miner, we've got 500 people in the company, probably about 490 of which are in Mexico. But so there's a lot of work to bring people along with you, and it's very important that everybody understands what's required of them. Everybody knows where they fit and what they need to do to contribute to the ultimate goal. So there's a lot of that sort of shaping that goes on, but the devil's in the detail. You've got to get to grips with the detail, otherwise the risks of failure become too high.
But what I heard you say too is that by having a team around you, what it means is that you need to be aware of the things that you don't know. So you have to know what you don't know.
Yeah.
You have to know when your level of competence is not at the level required to get to the next stage. So that's a really important part. I got two final questions for you, Mike. My next question here is, so you guys are a gold junior miner. You're bullish on gold, but gold moves really slow. And you've talked about a multi-year plan. So where do you think gold is going to be in the next, call it 1 to 2 years?
I do try and avoid making predictions about metal prices because it's not my skill set, and I read guidance to get the information that I need, and obviously a variety of guidance, so you end up by you form a view. I think it's having said that, I would say I think it's a really interesting and very difficult time to forecast metal prices because of the various sort of global challenges that we have right now. I do think gold's going to have a strong, going to continue to perform well. I think silver is going to continue to perform very well too.
I agree.
And we get about at Tahuehueto, we get about 60% of our revenue from the gold and about 12 to 15% of our revenue from silver. So 75% base metal, precious metals, and then the balance is from the base metals.
Okay.
The copper, I think, is going to continue to be strong too. I mean, for obvious reasons. Zinc and lead are more difficult to pick, I think. So I read more guidance on them. I mean, at Campo Morado, a significant part of our revenues are from zinc, and we've increased. Well, partly in response to the declining zinc prices recently, we've increased the contribution of copper to the bottom line at Campo Morado. It was contributing about 10 to 12% or so of the revenue previously. In December, I decided to increase that. So now it's about 25% of the revenue stream at Campo Morado. And we're probably going to be increasing that a bit further too, I think. So exposure to copper is a good thing for us. And continue to build out our precious metals at both sites. I think they're going to have for the foreseeable, they're going to remain pretty strong. I mean,
So I'll say what I think you want to say is that I think gold's in a super cycle, but the problem is that it can sometimes take a very super long time for it to actually materialize.
A long time,
because I first got involved in the stock market with gold stocks sometime in the mid 2000s, and you only realize what's happening in hindsight. So I think there's big undertows or there's big currents that are happening, but they don't always happen fast. These things move really slow. But over time, I think you guys are making really good investments now to make sure you can improve your current cash flow position, but then also make these investments for the future. That's really what I'm hearing.
And so we've got good exposure, right? So we've got a good spread. I think the other factor here is, we're spread. We're very much polymetallic. We're spread across base metals and precious metals. So, we're looking at metal prices across a variety of commodities, not just the one. So we're not dependent on just on the gold price. So that gives us a little bit of latitude.
One thing that's really hard to print is metals, resources. So it's easy to turn the printing press on and print dollars, but in terms of getting mining, as you're aware, it takes a lot of money, effort, energy, resources to discover minerals and then actually get them out of the ground and then get them into the products that we love to buy. So if you had a final message for investors here, what would you want to leave them with?
I just think, Luca, I suppose, testament to the way we've been able to perform with this recent placing. Luca's at a very interesting stage now. It is a really interesting opportunity for people to have a look at because of our valuation, where it should be, but where it is for those historical reasons. I think we're going to see a series of re-ratings during the rest of this year as we achieve some of these milestones and build more confidence in the market in what we can do. There'll be some more other other organizational changes and things that'll happen over the next few months. But all of that will be sending the same message, which is Luca is going to become a serious mining company with aspirations to sort of step up. Next year we would want to be knocking on the door of 100,000 ounces. That's one of those thresholds that people, that catches people's attention. Our current plans for 2024 will see us producing about just over 60,000 ounces equivalent gold. But with some of these growth ambitions we've got at the sites or with an acquisition, we want to get up to that 100,000 level next year. Some of the things, in preparation for that, we'll be looking at some of those opportunities this year. For example, looking at the possibility of expanding Tahuehueto, beyond the 1,000 tons at a concept level, but just to get our heads around what's involved. So, ambitions to grow, but you've got to do it from some platform, and that's what this is about this year. So hopefully we will get the re-ratings that we expect, and so we'll see some good growth in the stock price during the rest of this year. And set ourselves up for a really strong future, really, 24 and beyond.
So it's been a really refreshing conversation, Mike. I appreciate your direct approach, your direct answers, and I'm wishing you all the best into the rest of this year and into next year as well. Thank you for your time.
Yes, that's great. Thanks. Good to talk to you. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much.